We are the American Legion Department of New Jersey. Be the one.
Democracy is not a new idea. First implemented by the Greeks in Athens, democracy has existed for millennia. It is the brainchild of men that are considered the greatest political minds of their age. Cleisthenes with his Democratia, and Plato with his Republic. These men helped lay the foundation for our American Republic before even having knowledge of our continent's existence. Still, nearly 2,000 years later, the experiment of democracy once again slithered into the mind of the 17th century's most daring philosopher, John Locke. His two treatises of government, published in 1689, laid the foundation for a modern constitution, that being that all men are created equal, that all men have rights, and that among these rights are those to life, liberty, and property. Yet Locke also ascertained that for the security of a free state, the people must sacrifice some of these rights to their government in exchange for its service and protection, a system that he referred to as a social contract. A social contract. The wording of this phrase logically leads us to conclude that it is not a one-way agreement, but rather a cooperative act in which both parties, both the people and their government, must work together to secure the rights of the population. If you were to hire a contractor to work on your home, how would that agreement work? Well, obviously, you would pay the contractor for their services, and they would in turn provide their services. This agreement relies on both parties to fulfill their respective ends of the deal. For if one party did not fulfill its end of the bargain, the entire agreement falls apart. Such is the nature of any contract, let alone a social contract. The day you became an American citizen, whether through naturalization or by taking a test, the Constitution became a document about you, about your everyday rights as an American. The Constitution has served and protected you by establishing these rights since before you were even able to take advantage of them. It asks nothing of you in return, besides your loyalty to its name and its president. However, just because you are not required to do more for the document that gives you your liberty does not mean that you are not still obligated to. For the day that you became an American citizen, you entered into a social contract with the American Constitution, the very same Constitution that has always upheld its end of the bargain. Therefore, it is high time for you to fulfill yours. For government is not just for the people, it is also by the people. Your government cannot service you unless you give it your time to service it. Still, most Americans today view their nation's politics as nothing but a comical game that serves to entertain them as they watch the news scroll by the bottom of a television screen. They tune into the speeches and debates only to watch these powerful men and women, the cream of their states, toil and bicker incoherently. This image, the image of the aging, gray-haired man droning out his dissatisfaction at the podium, is what most citizens think of when they first hear the word politics. They hold this association because they do not pay attention long enough to realize the nuances of what these seemingly boring proceedings represent. They are our Constitution at work. They are the product of over 200 years of this living document's life. They are what all of you have pledged your allegiance to, whether consciously or subconsciously. And they are what many of us have forsaken for far too long. How many of you would consider yourselves to be patriots? Seeing as we are gathered here in the name of an organization that calls itself the American Legion, I would hope the answer to be all of you. Of course, we all hold some form of love for our country, for our Constitution that has given us our liberty. Still, how many of you recently have looked at the names on the ballot and cringed? How many of you have said or heard someone say that it just seems like we don't have a good choice these days? That if these are the choices that we are given, what is even the point in choosing at all? The people that say these things do indeed love their country, and it pains them to see the rage and divisiveness that has so gripped it in these recent years. However, what they do not realize is that by thinking this way, and by foregoing their right, nay, their privilege to choose, they are directly contributing to the problem. It was Thomas Jefferson who once said that the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of tyrants and patriots. Yet this does not need to be the case. For patriotism is not something that may only exist on some God-forsaken battlefield halfway around the world, but rather something that exists within yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, the tree of liberty may also be refreshed with paper. Paper in the form of votes cast by the hands of educated men and women, just like you and me. Paper upon which is written our sacred American social contract that we have all forgotten for far too long. Former President Obama has a message that he tends to deliver at many of his most recent speeches. Whenever the crowd begins to roar out its dissatisfaction against the candidate which the president is currently speaking about, he simply replies, "Do not boo. Vote. Do not boo. Vote." This message must be taken to heart if we are to participate in our government. For if we are not going to air our grievances through dutiful participation, why bother to air them at all? Do we truly deserve our First Amendment right to criticize our government if we are not going to offer it our service to better it? It is time for us to take control of our own lives, of our own nation's government. Such participation must not be done waywardly or half-heartedly. It must be done with a steady and educated hand. For an uneducated vote is more dangerous than no vote at all. And so I ask of you today, ladies and gentlemen, to fulfill your end of the social contract that involuntarily exists between you and your nation. Vote. Thank you.
We are the American Legion Department of New Jersey. Be the one.